Hi, everyone. We will definitely need a recap because some of the areas we're going to walk today is like if I just take you there, it won't really make much sense because last episode was on the Rubenstein Street and now we are somewhere else. So we are doing it with a little bit, with a little tale from the previous tour. That's Dostoevsky, in case we need a reminder of how he looked like. This is the monument to Dostoevsky, just overlooking one of the main avenues, the Vladimir Avenue, named after the Vladimir Church. And Dostoevsky himself prayed in this church multiple times. A lot of characters of his novels also went to this church. And Dostoevsky, one of the addresses was is in this neighborhood. Actually, two. No, actually three. That's interesting. And we walked to some of those streets. And now, just a little recap of what we have already done. So Vladimir Avenue is exactly in the left-hand corner. And then if you turn left, you find yourself at Grafsky Avenue. And in the end of the Grafsky Lane is the Rubenstein Street. We will be back to Rubenstein Street for sure. But first, we need to leave the Rubenstein Street through this amazing building. We call it the Tolstoy House because it belonged to one of the distant relatives of Leo Tolstoy. But you know, Tolstoy, there were so many Tolstoys in general. It's a big family with a lot of cousins, uncles, and everything. So yeah, it was the aristocratic family, and it belonged to, so this house belonged to them. It was just a tenant house, the usual thing, built at the turn of the 20th century by Fyodor Lidval, who was one of the most prominent Art Nouveau, Northern Art Nouveau architects in the city. We have seen bunch of his buildings on multiple tours. Well, Fyodor or Frederick, so he was actually Swedish, but he was born and bred in St. Petersburg. So he, even though he had a Swedish name, he considered himself Russian for a long time. But eventually, after the revolution, he had to flee and he left. And he left for Sweden, and he built quite a lot of buildings there too, in Finland and Sweden. You can find them. So he was very good. And this is one of the, I would say, um, milestones in his career because he was given quite a irregular plot of land for construction, and it goes a little bit to the angle. It's a big territory, but still it's quite irregular. It wasn't easy, and you see it kind of goes a little bit in an it kind of turns there if you go. There are several courts, and all of those are private apartments, but there are still some of the communal ones. Still, most of them are privatized after the perestroika. But yes, and it's one of the most expensive buildings to live in the city too, by the way. A lot of celebrities, some politicians have apartments in this house. It's not like they necessarily live in this house, but they own property in this building. It's super prestigious. It's a really, really affluent neighborhood. But also, on one and the same floor, they can be an apartment of a politician or, I don't know, a lawyer or an actor. And then their neighbor would be, I don't know, 6 or 7 families living in one communal apartment. And if you look at the map, you will see how strange and irregular the plot of land is. It has this angle, it bends a little bit. Yeah, but when you're there, you see the bend, but you don't really feel it. It looks beautiful, monumental, and expensive for sure. So now we find ourselves in the Fontanka River embankment. Just as a reminder, over there is the famous Anichkov Bridge with the horse tamers. We crossed the bridge on foot because it's part of the Nevsky Avenue. We also sailed under this bridge, just like here you see this is the colorized 19th century postcard from St. Petersburg. We took a similar boat. Not much really has changed. Even the horses are the same. And also the palace is the same because by the Anichkov Bridge is the Anichkov Palace. And in a couple of weeks from now, I am taking you on a very short series of tours of Anichkov Palace, which happened to be home to parents of Nicholas II. And for a couple of years, it was also home to the newlywed Nicholas II and Alexandra. So there are a bunch of things to talk about. It's going to be tours of four, well, virtual tours. So every Saturday, same time. But first, we need to finish with the Romanovs' legacy in the Holy Land. And as we move along the Fontanka River embankment, you see a lot of buildings. Almost all of them are tenant houses, including this one, the Yeliseyev house. It's the last one we saw all last week. And it's one of the very expensive houses. It also occupies a big territory, vast territory, and well, there is no gap between the buildings, right? So how on earth are we supposed to access inner courtyards? How are we supposed to, well, if we need to go to the parallel street, do we have to go all the way till the end of the street and then turn again? Are there ways to cut, a little bit for shortcuts? Yes, there are. But just in case you forgot Yeliseyevs, who the Yeliseyevs were, well, they used to run this big store of well, premium class products, let's say colonial goods as well. That's, I would say, widely accepted term. And this is the store on Nevsky Avenue. We have seen it multiple times. We have even been there. We have even done a live stream. And as we did live stream, we went in for a short while. So Grigory Yeliseyev ran the house at the time of, the turn of the 20th century. And, well, Yeliseyev had several shops, and they invested a lot in properties in general. They also owned wine cellars. They owned shops outside of the country as well. And as I said shortly before the revolution, I said it last time, they were about to open a store in New York even. So this is how rich and powerful they were. But the revolution got in the way, kind of story. Businesses were nationalized. All the property was seized. And well, you know the story. Luckily, Grigory Yeliseyev by that time had already been in Europe, divorced, widowed, forgotten by his sons because he had, well, he fell in love with someone else while he was married, and his wife wasn't willing to give a divorce, but that totally drained her emotionally, and she eventually took her own life. It was a horrible story. I shared it once on one of the tours. I'll just tell you that his wife hanged herself on her hair. I'm just saying, it was a horrible story. The whole family turned against him, turned their backs to him, and none of the children actually ever talked to his father again after that. Well, and after the revolution, he just remained penniless. But he left this great legacy in the city, and it wasn't the house where he lived. No, they had their own houses in the city. They had their own a summer mansion also. It was just a tenant house. It's just to when money make money. But one of his sons lived in this house after the revolution, and this Grigory. It says in this house lived Grigory Grigorievich Yeliseyev, so his son, and his son remained in the city after the revolution, and eventually he was executed in the 30s, in the 1930s. So he was repressed and executed during the Stalin purges. So this type of metal plaques you can find all around the city and around the country. They are kind of, well, they symbolize portraits without faces because, well, these people were kind of forgotten, and they were public enemies, so they were not really allowed to be seen and to be remembered, but they are remembered. So, but it's really sad because the house still remains, right? The house is still there. It's called the Eliseyev House, and all that sort of happened last century. Yeah, and that's quite tough. So that was the fate of Yeliseyev's family. And this was just investment, just like many other companies would do. They would invest in buying more property, building more housing, because there was never really enough apartments in the city. It was always constantly growing city, big capital. So, and since Yeliseyevs had the money and Yeliseyevs had the brand, they couldn't just build an ordinary house. They built something absolutely state of the art at that time. They had everything. They had elevators. They had electricity. They had their own power station and multiple other things that came in. Well, that were possible at that time. The two yards, and you can only access it through a lobby, through one of the entrances, and then you exit, and then you find yourself in the first court. This is where the windows from the most expensive apartments actually all that's what they overlook. And if you walk a little bit more, you'll find yourself in the second court, where there are more, I would say, more modest apartments, but also, and that's exactly where we stopped last time, there is even a fountain for horses, because horses were the main kind of transport at that time, and they had to be kept somewhere, right? Just like now, when we buy a house, we need a garage. When we buy an apartment, we need a right, parking space for it. But back in the days, it was the horses, but horses also needed to be parked, needed to be fed, needed to be given water. And there you go. And that's just exactly what we have. And you see the years, 1889, 1890. So it only took a year, well, a little bit more than that, to build the house, because the United States had the money. That's it. And you see, this is the second court. You don't see anything here, no decoration at all. The previous courtyard, however, was quite ornate, right? So unfortunately, well, fortunately, unfortunately, that's how it was. Obviously, well, the even modest apartments in this particular house were very expensive, but still they wanted to fit different budgets, and that's how they did it. So you see, this is the first courtyard. Yeah, well, still here you may see that some windows are overlooking the neighbors' windows, but these are no, normally the same one and the same. Well, it was very common anyway. Like you couldn't really avoid that in many cases. So one of the entrances, that's what it looks. Well, yellow is just the Soviet color of the walls, and we can only guess that it's most likely. I remember I attended one of the tours, and parts of the videos actually I recorded while I was on the tour with the tour guide. She told us there several stories. Like there are no records of how exactly the lobbies were decorated, but apparently all these walls used to be covered with some paintings of some sort. But later on in the Soviet times, they would just paint above it, and that was it. So the colors is still here. The railing, however, is original. The tiles, the terrazzo tiles are also original. That was a technology that preceded metlach tile. So um, this type of the flooring with the concrete dust, with concrete and uh, parts of marble, granite, and any other stones. Uh, so it would just be something that would be brought from the quarries, like leftovers, the dust and everything, and it would be put together. And these are lasting, very reliable um, ways to lay the floor with the same tiles. This is not the most expensive lobby. Yes, we're going to see a more expensive one. We're going to see one of the main lobbies. There are several entrances, there are several lobbies. And also, as you remember, there would always be one more staircase for servants. And obviously, the entrance to the servant staircase will be from the second courtyard. That's it. The paintings are modern. They're just placed here by the people who live in the house. Yeliseyev House, I remember I have been there on a number of tours. Uh, and yes, it's really weird to know that it occupies also the entire quarter. And there are very different apartments from super luxurious to very rundown uh, communal ones. Yes, so this is an interesting thing. So remember, I told you like the house occupies big plot of land, and obviously people would always find a way for a shortcut. And there was one, but through one of the lobbies, through the black staircase that we call it in Russian black staircase or servant staircase, service staircase, whatever. And you could exit to the street, to the backyards, to the guts of St. Petersburg. And now I need to remind you where we are and what we talked about last time. So this is the backyard of a school. The school we spoken last time about. It's one of the oldest schools in the area. Not the oldest, but one of the very old schools that was opened thanks to the donations of the Merchant Society of St. Petersburg. And merchants was a very powerful and rich, but not so numerous um, social class, and they tried to. Well, they were always extremely supportive of various communities, and they did a lot of charity work, mainly first and foremost, yeah, just because out of goodwill, yeah, but also because they in the let's say up until well 20th century merchants always felt a little bit inferior to aristocracy. They were always looked down on by aristocrats, and well, they wanted to be taken serious, they wanted to be respected, they wanted to be recognized. That's why they did a lot of charity work. And plus, closer to the end of the 19th century, aristocracy would be experiencing a great decline and deterioration and lack of money because the time wasn't waiting for them, and merchants were making a lot of money but not recognized. Aristocrats weren't making a lot of money but were had a title. So it was kind of a win-win situation. There were many merchants tried to marry aristocrats, even if they were poor. They were kind of buying themselves a title. So that was a very common thing to do a lot of charity work. It's still a school, by the way. It has nothing to do with commerce anymore, however. But this was a school of little merchants, the school of little businessman, the school of little Rothschild, or something like that. Yeah, so we saw this postcard on the previous tour. Sorry for that. Yeah, there you go. So this is the postcard. This is the school. I think it's quite recognizable. And this is the photo of the foundation ceremony of the school. And there were also different events held in the school within the merchant society, since it was the property of the entire merchants community of St. Petersburg, not just certain businessmen that wanted to chip in to help the city. No, it was there was a big family initiative. These are the teachers and most likely students as well. This is another photograph, some sort of regatta or whatever. So it's still a school. That's great to know. And some interiors in the school from that time have survived, believe it or not. We have a lot of photographs. I shared them last time. I'm not going into details once again, but so there is still the same concert hall, and it still looks just as it looked 100 years ago. That's that's lovely. There's some of the classrooms. I haven't been to the school myself. Well, schools are not really open for tours, so but well, I just have some photographs to share. The portrait of Nicholas II on the wall. So they say that this library, it's part of the study room. It's still there with the same staircase, with the same with the same um, vibe even. That's the natural history room, laboratory of all sorts. So the school was very well equipped. The school had a very good funding, and it was very prestigious to be given a place to study at the school. And it still is a really prestigious school. So this is the backyard of the school. They play football there. And there is also one more road exactly through the guts of St. Petersburg. And you find yourself also in the courtyard. So part of it still belongs to the school. But if you go to the right, you will find yourself in another playground, in another courtyard that also is part of the Yeliseyev house. It's a maze. I told you that some of these buildings, well, like Tolstoy house is a maze, but it's quite easy to find yourself there. With Yeliseyev house, it's not exactly like that. But I think that's what makes it even more fun because you are lost in those alleyways and then you never know where these roads will and this street will take you to. In our case, we are taken to, in our case, we are taken to this kids' playground. And whenever you are in St. Petersburg, yeah, and you find yourself in those backyards and you are in the, let's say, 19th, early 20th century area, you are bound to see windows or garages of this type. Like here you see, well, there is a car park, but you have the idea. You see these windows. Originally, they were not windows, but they were doors to the horse stables. And after that, to the garage, to garage, well, when cars started uh, to 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 drive around the streets of St. Petersburg. Let's put it like that. And later on, well, in the Soviet times, there was a big lack of housing, even bigger than it was before the revolution, because a lot of people from the villages flooded Leningrad after the revolution. Well, that's why every a square meter, we do it in meters, so every square meter counted, and it was decided just to turn those into proper rooms, and eventually this would become part of apartments. And but if you take a look, no, hold on a second. If you take a look, I just want to pause it for a second. Okay, even if, well, let's take a look at these windows. In the corners, right where the base of this arch is, you see the hinges. So these are the hinges on which the gates from the garage or from the horse stable, yeah, there you go, were. The hinges are still there. And then it was super easy. They were eh, downstairs horses. Upstairs, well, just right above the horse stables, there are small windows, as you can see. And these windows are also different. They are arched. They are also different from the original windows, from all the other windows in the vicinity. That's because they are also made rooms. Originally, they were just we call it a stennik, like the room for the hay. haystack room, something like that. So everything that was necessary for the horses, everything, because it was public transport. That was it. Well, I'm not sure whether there was a there was a kids' playground back then, but what I know for sure is that this house was built with a big studio apartment with a big workshop over there, and it was originally built like this. And I found even photographs online. So there is a glass roof because the light is absolutely essential for an artist. And I'm not sure if the apartment was rented immediately after the house was finished, but mm, from what I heard that well back in the days when this photo was taken, this is 2017, I believe, or something around that. It was still the apartment of an artist, and he rented the studio from the how shall I put it, from the um, Academy of Fine Arts. So the artists, they had an apartment and they rented the studio from the Academy of Arts, not the Ministry of Art, but from the Academy of Arts. There were not so many apartments like this, so it was quite. They were quite lucky to have it because the daylight is absolutely essential for artists. And St. Petersburg, yeah, doesn't have much sunlight in general. Yeah, but in this house, in this part of the building, it's still all part of the system of courtyards of Yeliseyev house. And now we're going to find ourselves in another street, and it's still going to be the talk about the house of Yeliseyev. Look, this is another garage. You see this door? I don't know whether they keep another car there at the moment. These are definitely doors from the Soviet period. I don't know, but originally they were definitely meant to be for horses. Maybe they used as storages. And there was also a lot of storages in this area. And again, you see, there's another courtyard, there's another yard, there is another alleyway. And this house obviously also has a beautiful lobby. And we are now looking at the staircase of the lobby, and it's going to be beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful lobbies in the city. Look, another courtyard. Again, this is another well-shaped yard. Look, it is what it is, but it hasn't affected the costs, the prices, no, all of that. It's still a very, very expensive area, and obviously there have been multiple attempts to finally get rid of the communal apartments, because all it takes is simply you want to just make an arrangement and agree and coordinate it with everyone who lives in this communal apartment that they are okay with you buying it and they will be getting their share. But people don't want to leave. People love this house very much, even though they live in a very, very rundown apartment. They still they still like it. Well, as we are leaving the courtyard, we find ourselves in another street that is Lomonosov Street, and that we will see a building of the commercial college that was also built to commission of the merchant community of the city. Beautiful building. Right now, it is based to the the informational technologies department of St. Petersburg University. So it has always been an educational facility anyway. You can see there a cross, however, but it's not because it's a church, but because the house has a church. And who were the patrons of this church? Because obviously there had to be someone put in charge, not necessarily just financially, in general. So it was the family of Duke Peter of Oldenburg, not Constantine Oldenburg that we spoke about on my tours of Tbilisi, right? The famous Oldenburg Palace in Tbilisi. Altogether, I think I have done eight episodes on that tour. It's just a small house, but with so many stories. Well, this particular facility was built to commission and with a lot of funding from the Oldenburg family. And here is the photo of Peter of Oldenburg together with his wife Olga, who happened to be the sister of Nicholas II. So who was this Peter of Oldenburg? To make it less complicated for you, I just put the text here. Hold on a second. So we spoke about the dynasty in general, that it's the one of the European dynasties that has quite a strong connection with the Russian Empire and the Romanovs anyway, through, well, especially through um, Nicholas I, right? And also the descendants of Josephine de Beauharnais. Mm, and well, as you know, Bogota family was not by blood, but related to Napoleon family as well. So it's interesting how the Oldenburgs, they kind of connected the Romanov house and the Napoleonic, well, the house of Napoleon in a way, which well, sounded a little bit bizarre in the 19th century when the memories of the Great Patriotic War in 1812 were still alive. But yes, in a way, that's exactly how it happened. But already after the end of war anyway. So Oldenburgs was a big dynasty that originated in Northern Europe. Yeah, well, you have the idea. And Peter of Oldenburg had a very good reputation of kind, educated, very cosmopolitan man, so to speak, aristocrat. However, there were also a lot of rumors claiming that he was more into men than women, and Olga was uh, desperate. Well, allegedly he had been seeing someone else while they were already married. So eventually, Nicholas II gave them a divorce because Olga, his sister, insisted on that, and that was it. And Olga then remarried again. But we will talk about it some other time. So, but yes, indeed, Peter of Oldenburg did a lot of the charity work in the city. And well, you saw the cross on the roof. So that cross belonged to the church, Peter and Paul Cathedral, in this in the commercial college. Just the interiors of the church with iconostasis and everything. Not much you can see because the quality is not really the best. This is some I'm not even sure which year it is, but we can no well it says 1872. It was some sort of a celebration in the church. So every educational facility, well, not just the school, but well, a university, an academy, they would always have a church, always. So this is the Lomonosov Street. Last time we spoke about the Lomonosov, we spoke about the street itself. And if you take a look at this map, so Fontanka River embankment, you see it very well. That's where we were. And if you look lower, you see the big system of, you see one building, it says 14B, where the Gigman services, right? You see it. So this kind of square is all one and the same building of Yeliseyev. It's one and the same house. Just imagine. And we went through all those courtyards. And eventually we are now in the heart of the Lomonosov Street. And so we, in a way, kind of just cut it a little bit because we didn't have to go all around the building and then turn to the Lomonosov Street, but we just went exactly directly through the house. Yep. So just for you to have an idea what it is. And this is what this house looks like from the Lomonosov Street. There you go. Looks impressive. And Gypsies and Jews. It's a bar, and I have never been there. So Gypsies and Jews. So this bar, I'm not sure if it's still there, but at least when I lived in St. Petersburg, it had always been in the city. Um, I'm not sure if it's still open, however. So this is the Yeliseyev house. And again, if you walk through this archway, technically speaking, you can just walk all the way to the Fontaine River embankment, but we have something else to see. We have already walked those alleyways. It's pretty, I would say, puzzling. But we are going to enter through the main lobby because we are not service people, right? We are VIPs, and we are going to see one of the very popular lobbies in the city, and we call it the Chamomile Lobby. And by the way, so I think this is what I filmed several years ago. We went there with a private guide. Well, it was the times when we still were didn't have tourists. It was still kind of this post-COVID times, but before the war started, and I mean the war in Ukraine started. So it was, I think it was 2021 when I filmed it. So it was me and my colleagues, and we would do these tours a couple of times a week, and we would chip in, just it was kind of a charity thing because we just wanted to support each other. So let's say if you could only afford to, let's say, chip in, I don't know, $5, you pay $5, but try to obviously pay more. I'm just imagining it, but that's how we entertain each other. That's how we stayed in profession, and this is how we definitely were able to deepen our knowledge on a lot of topics because anyway, I well I let's say I never really specialized on lobbies, but I knew the lobbies that let's say we are passing by a certain street and then I say to our tourist, hey, there is a beautiful lobby, would you like to see it? Or if I want to cut the road a little bit, if I want to find a shorter way somehow, then I would use this ace, from my pocket for sure. So why is it called the chamomile staircase? You're going to see it very soon. Now, again, this terrazzo tiles. Yes, there was also a fireplace as usual in the lobbies in the 19th century, early 20th century. Yes, there had to be also a fireplace. Also, there had to be a lamp because there wasn't always a lot of lights in the lobbies because it was still expensive, but that was an expensive house anyway. So this is the photo. I'm not sure. I think it's maybe just already early Soviet period. I have no idea. We saw this lobby from the outside. We saw kind of the arched, round shaped part of the building. So this is an elevator. This is the original shaft elevator. And uh, it goes to the very top and it has the beautiful decoration, the beautiful design. And look at this. So there used to be a door there. I think you can see it. So back in the days, I'm talking about early 1900s, there was an elevator. There was an elevator guy always inside, and there were chairs so 6 people could fit in this elevator. Not anymore. Now, one person with just one small carry-on bag can fit in. There is no way, you know, anyone with a pram could fit in. So that's a little bit complex. And also, you could stop on like half of the floor, and that used to be the door over there. But not anymore. And it's just a regular elevator, but it's very, very small. I guess, well, I have never seen the elevator smaller than we sometimes have in St. Petersburg. and look at the design. So this is their original shaft. We even have some of those wooden, um, well, wooden railings, and also the doors, the original doors with the original, very expensive stained glass. This type of stained glass that we often call a milky stained glass was made also. I don't know the technology exactly, but as far as I understand, they it was uh, they used different chemicals, including, well, and a lot of acids as well. So I'm not sure how they did it, but it was a very, it was a lot more expensive than just placing an ordinary colored stained glass. And we go around and round like in a spiral. We're looking at the original details, and then we find ourselves on the very top. And when we're there, you will see why it's called the chamomile. And by the way, this lobby is so popular that they even charge you. So there is a concierge downstairs, and they charge you for a tour. Just imagine. And there you go. So I guess now with all these design round shapes, so it kind of looks like a flower, right? At the top. So we call it Ramashka, chamomile. You can come up with your own version for the name. That's not an issue at all. But just imagine, so that already early 1900s, this house had its own elevator with a beautiful red velvet seats. That's what we read um, in some of the memoirs. And I just like this photo very much. And just look at this decoration. Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm a big fan of this lobby. Now you understand why I love the Tbilisi lobby so much. It maybe not necessarily the most ornate lobby, but I like the vibe. I like the light. I like that there is much space. I like that there is a lot of light as well. Mm, that's really cute. Now, so you see the Lomonosova Street, right? It says Lomonosova Street. And if you go to the very heart of the frame, there is a little circle there and it says Pyat Uglov. This is the Google Maps. I don't know why they don't really translate it, but they just transliterate it. But what you can see there is kind of the junction of actually four roads, right? In the very center, there kind of four roads come together. So this is the famous five corners square there. Well, five corners means Pять углов. There was also a French name, I can never remember it. And if we just follow the Lomonosov Street straight ahead, we will find ourselves in the square. There is like five roads coming together into the square. And it's many people say it's a kind of a magical place. There is very special energy there because five roads converge. It's something very meaningful. I don't know. Maybe that's just because these people are always drunk, because this is the famous Rubenstein Street, which I am sure you remember. Well, most of you were with me already in 2021. And you may remember the street is the street where I did a lot of the bar hopping tours, or maybe bar crawling. I'm not sure it was a bar. Maybe originally it was bar hopping, but we would end up with a bar crawling thing. So this is the famous corner, but the building, however, is very different, right? You see the small free floor building. It used to be a shop. It used to belong to a merchant family, but then the plot of land was purchased from them. And there was a very ambitious project approved by the municipality of St. Petersburg. And the owner, was the merchant Yov, well, who was of a Jewish descent. This is the photograph of Yov and the architects destroying the building because they needed to completely get rid of the old house to build the new one. Well, the old house was there from early 1800s. It didn't really make much sense. So they wanted to build something modern, and they did. And they did. And it's hard to imagine, but yes, there is also the tram line, and you see the bell tower of the Vladimirsk church just in the very end of the image, in the very middle of the frame. You can see it. So we kind of have completed the circle of walking around just several neighborhoods, but thoroughly exploring them. So this is not an easy itinerary. It's highly likely that if you just tell someone go and explore on your own, I don't think people will be able to do that quickly. Or maybe they will, but well, I would say I wouldn't. I wouldn't. But it feels very safe being there. We even walked down those alleyways with you at night. It felt very safe, but it's dark. That was an issue. I had to have a light. And after one of the tours that I did together with you, Misha picked me up because it was quite late and I was doing bar hopping. So Misha picked me up and we went home. This is us taking photo next to the Yov house. The very sad thing, however, is the Yov built the house in like 1914, 1915. They finished the construction and they only had a couple of years until the revolution. So the project never really paid off. This is me and Oscar and my favorite red beanie in one of the restaurants, one of our stops on the bar hopping street in the off house. And I think I've shared also some more photographs of the Rubinstein Street. And the next episode, I will take you to some more areas of the Rubinstein Street. And we're going to visit a museum of a writer, a prominent Soviet writer who also was a dissident who left for America. Amidst the Soviet times, that was a big deal. Davlatov. We talked about him back in the days, but don't expect you to remember. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to visit the museum that is located in the very apartment where Davlatov lived. Obviously, a former communal apartment, obviously. And by the way, this is the shaft of the elevator, very small, very narrow. It's just almost impossible to leave while you're there, to breathe while you're there. This is the famous well-shaped courtyard. This is my photograph. I took it. I was exploring my opportunities. I was wondering if I could find a way, to take you there on the virtual tour, but there was no connectivity there at all. And I like this photo very much. So there was a steam train that would go along this avenue. And this is the photograph taken from the windows because upstairs in the tower, there has always been an artist studio for the same reason, obviously, because of the light. Artists were desperate for light, and there you go. So this is the famous Rubinstein Street. We already we were on the street in the previous episode in the central area, but we haven't really walked the street from the beginning to the end. And we also need to visit the Museum of Dovlatov. So that's what we're going to do next time. And yes, so this is exactly the street where my favorite Chebureki place was, Larissa. Let me know later on the chat if you remember the place. Together after the bar hopping, we would drop by this Cheburek place, which is like an Uzbeki cuisine place. And Oscar enjoyed it very much. Misha enjoyed it very much. So this was us in the middle of the night, enjoying Rubinstein vibe. So this is this Cheburek thing, right? Like the smile thing. and it was absolutely just absolutely delicious. It's meaty and it's deep fried. I know it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, and also we took a lot of shots with you right back then. So that's the photographs from the bar hopping. So next time we're going to explore Rubinstein Street, named after the musician Anton Rubinstein, uh, who happened to live in the street for some time. And we're going to get a little bit more nostalgic about, well, 2021. We're going to see some more opulent houses. We're going to walk some more courtyards as well. And yes, this also was part of the Dostoevsky's neighborhoods, kind of. Okay, let's have a Q&A. Let me turn it off, open the chat. Yeah, that's it. So hi to those who joined us in the middle of the tour as well. Always good to have you. Hi, Satyam. Hi, Mark. Hi, Holly as well. I'm not sure if I said hi. So, Maria, good to see you. I'm sure, Maria, you know the Vlatov. So, next time we are going to visit a small museum. It's a private initiative. Actually, this is an initiative of several local tour guides and one of the local journalists whom I know very well. She's just a big fan of the Vlatov. And well, we're going to talk about it. It's just there isn't a better place for a museum than Rubenstein Street for sure. I mean, for the museum. I'm very surprised Oscar was old enough to go on bar hopping tour, but then yes, a couple of times I was actually asked if I was 18 for a tour. Oscar was always okay. No, nobody ever really bothered for his ID, but I had to carry my passport with me once because I didn't want to risk, being turned away or I don't know, kicked out of a bar. It was funny actually. It was very funny. Yeah. And because I was always very thorough with my tours, so I would always come in advance. I would always ask the permission to live stream from the place if I could film what I could show, and then I would always like come to the security guys and say, hey, this is me, I will be back, this is my passport. I was like 35 at that time, this is me, I'm 35, and they would like be yeah, it was funny. Was it in the Rimsky-Korsakov Museum? What's in the Rimsky-Korsakov Museum and Mansion? Bar hopping, the Grisha was with grandma and nanny. We had yeah, we had a nanny. It was a luxury. We had a nanny back then. And also on the weekends, Emma would be coming and staying with Grisha too. So yeah, Grisha was okay. Grisha loved his nanny so much. And where Rimsky-Korsakov is not in that area. Rimsky-Korsakov Museum is not in that area. His house, I think we actually did a tour of Rimsky-Korsakov Museum. It's a little bit, well, it's Zagorodny Avenue. It's one of those, it's just a little bit down south of that avenue. Yeah, the lobby is a real gem, and I love the way his furnace had managed to get on the picture. Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so definitely, I'm going to be sharing more stories. We're going to be looking. We're going to be exploring the Rubinstein Street with the Dovlatov Museum. We do think they're absolutely inseparable. And if you remember the previous tour, the recording, by the way, is available still. I know it took me a while to share the newsletter because I've been a little bit, swamped. And the recording is there. In the previous tour, I also told you that Rubinstein Street was actually the place where the Leningrad Rock Club had its concerts on a regular basis. And it was all actually done with the approval of KGB. So Rubinstein Street has always been very rebellious. But before that, it was also a very expensive place to live. So we're going to talking about it next time. Hopefully by tomorrow I will be able to. Yeah, it's just a little bit down the street, but it's not really part of kind of the Dostoevsky Avenue. Zagorodny Avenue goes. It's quite long avenue, and it will eventually take you to the outskirts of the city and then to the countryside because Zagreb actually means countryside avenue. Royal furnace, exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think we did tour of the of Rimsky-Korsakov Museum. I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah. And well, Dolly, you're a sponsor, so you have access to all those videos. I just need to look for it because there are almost 1,002 recordings now. Woohoo! Chamomile house is yellow as the chamomile tea, or vice versa. Well, I'm not sure about the color. Maybe, well, color too, yeah, but it's kind of it should be the yellow heart and and white leaves like petals. I don't know, but we everyone calls it the yellow or a chamomile house. I don't know, but it looks like a flower to me at least. Maybe a daffodil. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much everyone for joining me. Let me share with you the link. So in 1 hour from now, I'm taking you to the Caliph Palace, which is actually a house, but it's a palace because it's one of the most opulent buildings in the city. And also, this is the place where the second biggest Fabergé collection used to be kept because it used to belong to the Kelp family. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the fate of those seven Fabergé eggs that they had. Yeah, all that and even more in 1 hour from now. And then after 1 more hour, Jerusalem, Mount of Olives, the Mary Magdalene Church that was built entirely by the Romanovs and with their own private from their own private donation. I was wondering what kind of a house was there in the very beginning with the mean Shastia. Well, Shastia is a restaurant, and it's a. I don't know about now, but it was. It used to be at least a kind of premium class um, restaurant chain. They used to have very good breakfasts. Couple of those restaurants, Shastia, they were located in the hotels or next to the hotels, and a lot of my tourists I would recommend to go there, from time to time, and they loved it too. Yeah, so that was a restaurant, and I think it still is. Thank you, everyone. I would appreciate your support. You can send me a PayPal donation. You could buy me a coffee. It's an ambitious name, but they did give you happiness. Yeah, it was a good place. I was there a couple of times. It wasn't the place I would regularly go to. I would always prefer Chebureki place to a pompous restaurant. Well, not exactly pompous, but a little bit snobbish place. So because it wasn't really my thing. But yeah, they had very good. Oh, they had also very good crafted chocolates. Yeah, so that I like. Thank you, everyone. I will see you in 55 minutes from now in St. Petersburg in an amazingly gorgeous house. Trust me. Absolute ultimate premiere. Thank you for everything, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.